Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. So you wanted to talk about some of this, some of the cabinet stuff, some of this transition stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to get back a little bit, keep talking about the Iowa and how that's going to impact, unless you're done with it and you're bored. So, Rod Roberts, right? I was most likely going to be the lieutenant governor pick. He ran against Kim Reynolds in 2010, or he ran against Branstad, lost. The lieutenant governorship, he was nominated. They all went in the back, him, Bob Vander Plaats, and Kim Reynolds. Kim Reynolds came out and said she'd accept it and went forward. I think Rod Roberts, if he became the lieutenant governor, would be an excellent choice. He really has some very strong conservative credentials, and I think he'd be a great addition. The problem is who's going to line up in 2018 to run against her? And I'm going to say it now. I think our good friend, Uncle Bob, is going to take that run. Because
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Why not?
Nope. Because I think that Kim Reynolds is pretty popular with his wing of the party. And I think that Bob has put himself out there 3 or 4 times, and he's lost every single time. I don't think that he has much, and honestly, you don't really hear about him anymore.
No, not really.
So,
after this last round where he tried to take out the judges again and got beat, I think
that's over. Yeah. The further on we go, and this is, at the risk of sounding smug, it is now 7 years since Varnum, and we say this all the time. Us jerk liberals say it's been 7 years since Varnum, and the sky still hasn't fallen, and the animals are not all driving cars, and there isn't anarchy. Yeah. And so the further along we get, and the more sort of just every day that it is, the anger and the rage seeps out of his particular movement, especially on the judicial level. Yeah. And plus you have the Bar Association being more vocal about it, which is the exact right thing to do, in my opinion.
All right. Well, we'll get back to Trump then. What do you think about Tillerson, who apparently is the CEO of, it's not Exxon, is it?
Yeah.
It's CEO of Exxon.
That's the only job he's ever had, is that Exxon.
So what do you think about, because I've gotten a couple of texts about, well, people understand Trump's strategy in appointing these people, titans of business, into the government to try to, bring
Maybe
some
you could
expertise.
explain it to me.
Well, these people run giant multinational corporations. There's a similarity between running a multinational and being in government. That's the idea. Also, picking people that are not absolutely familiar with the position they're going to be taking. The idea is maybe they'll work harder. And then I get back to the Trump wants who he thinks is the best person for that, and not a yes man. What do you think about the pick for Tillerson? As Secretary of State,
I think he's completely unqualified. I don't know how anybody could seriously argue that he is. He's worked at Exxon his entire life. That's great.
He runs Exxon.
Right. That's great.
And so
awesome.
he's had to go to these multiple branches of different governments and work within that government frame without the power of the United States to be able to get things done. You don't see that as an advantage of being able to do things without the backing of the U.S. government or the being part of that government?
By making if you think that all foreign policy is transactional in nature, sure.
Well, all foreign policy. I mean, life is transactional in nature.
No, it's not.
Right?
No, it's not. Not really, because sometimes you have to do things that don't benefit you to get something down the road that'll benefit you more. That is not the nature of business, not even a little bit.
Well, sure it is.
You take the quick. You would always rather take the quick kill than game out the long way. We all know this. You have the chance of $5,000 now, or you have a smaller chance of $50,000 down the road. You take the $5,000. Always. You always do. To do otherwise would be a foolish thing.
Well, but I'm going to disagree with you on that. This is going to be our first disagreement. What, in 2 weeks? So, talking to a smart guy, happens to be a billionaire. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you the party and the rest of it. So, we're sitting there talking. I have a friend of mine who is honestly a pretty smart guy, but he's never going to be tight in a business. So we're all sitting there talking. This guy had bought a company, which I'm not going to mention, for $500,000. At the time we were talking, it was valued at $2.5 billion. My friend says, why don't you just sell your business, and now you have $2 billion. And then you go do what you want, live a high life, and have all kinds of women. And he looked me right in the eye, like, oh, where'd you dig this guy up? And then he looked at my friend like he was a moron and said, why would I leave $10 billion on the table? Well, what do you mean? I think I can sell my company for $12 billion if I do these certain things. And he laid it out. That's how businesses think. Businesses don't always take that immediate thing. There's something called a loss leader, right? And in medicine, the loss leader is, Life Flight. Life Flight loses, I think, somewhere around $800,000 a year. But you have to get those people in, provide your services and everything else. So you're not always going like, I just need my $5,000 now. These people are always looking down the road, trying to figure out what problems are going on.
And that is not that. Tell me how that translates to good foreign policy. Tell me how that, because sometimes that is not a good idea when you're dealing with a foreign government.
Well, and that's true. And sometimes in business, it's not a good idea with that foreign government. And sometimes you have to do things that are distasteful to you in order to be able to get that business going. The same thing that we do. I mean, we supported Saddam Hussein in the Iraq-Iran war. Do you really think we thought he was a great guy, or do you think we got to hold our nose and do it this way?
Yep.
I mean, that's
so. Why would we do? So, but that was with. That was in the Reagan administration, the George H.W. Bush administration, so we went to war with him, the Clinton administration, up until George W. Okay? Everybody in those administrations, that in those key decision-making roles, career politicians, folks that did that sort of thing. And until George W. went in and upset the apple cart, we had a fairly stable, if not horrendously corrupt and terrible human rights record country of Iraq. It wasn't the way it is now, right? Why would a business person be better in that job? That's the thing. So you're operating on this assumption that being a business person, by itself, for the fact of being a business person or being successful at business, means that you just are good at stuff. And that might be true, except that doesn't mean you're good at the government. There are different kinds of interests.
Tell me this. And that's true.
Tell me this.
We're up at a break, and I see that you're getting wound up. So let's take a break, and then we'll come back with this. Does experience in business, running a giant multinational corporation employing hundreds of thousands of people, is that qualify you enough to be able to be a Secretary of State? That's the question. So we're going to be back with that right after this break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We couldn't do what we do